Howdy, folks. We are halfway through October, and this is the 31st episode of the Historical Fencing Guild's live stream show. I, as always, eternally bound trapped, is your host, Anyway, I am your host. As you can see, this is very much a live stream of this. Nick Tucker, artist, entrepreneur, swordmaster, and general goofball. This has been one of those where I already had to crack open the pop just before I could get going. Calamity of errors. I don't know how I managed to get here on time, but right now I'm evaded by a very specific Hello Kitty. We got a lot to talk about this week. Wow. As always, please chime in. And for those of you who know me on Facebook, feel free to hit me up through Facebook Messenger. It will be going off to the side. Well, I had some news, and I have some other goodies coming down the line, so I'm going to fill you all in. First off, I have started the filming for the sickle and the Great Sickle Scythe video. I say started because I have part of it filmed, a chat, and I was going to do the physical part, except the wind caught both my phone and my tripod and sent them on a merry head over heels tumble off into the nether. So I had quite a while adventuring to catch my stuff, which decided suddenly going 30 some odd miles an hour was a good idea. Now, I found something really cool and I wanted to show you, and it is just not where I recall leaving it. So there'll be something to look forward to in the future. But since we're here, we're a little low on folks. Oh, wow. Basically, everything I keep planning to grab, I have misplaced while sitting here. It is really, truly one of those days. And you know what, guys? It's great. The Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you first and foremost in much more organized fashion, usually, by my amazing patrons. You can follow the link that will be at the bottom of this in the description when I get posted up. It's done being all lively. Or look for the Historical Fencing Guild on Patreon to help me keep this afloat, because I'm running this whole shebang on less than a shoestring budget. Now, I need something I can draw on, and I am improvising. Why? Because we're going to talk a little bit tonight about swords, obviously. We're going to talk about them. It always feels wrong when I wear my hat backwards. It's just not who I am. We're going to talk about what the trope of the sword says about the wielder to the viewer. So that's going to be something we're definitely going to be getting in on. As always, the Historical Fencing Guild is brought to you also by The Simple Sword, my lovely book on swordsmanship, which the sequel, while it's slow is in the works, and is an interim novella. I don't know how long it's going to be, focusing on the axe. Now you can find The Simple Sword along with my game books, much like you'll see this, the Big Stompy Robots line of games. All these can be bought at decidedly low cost prices on the Amazon site. That's right, www.amazon.com/authors/Nicholas Tucker. That's me. That'll get you to my bookshelf. Feel the caffeine going into your soul. Let it relish and invigorate you. Tonight will be fueled by my usual Mount Lightning and my attempt at making a caffeinated Toblerone orange flavored drink. We'll tell you how that goes a little later. Ooh, it goes. It goes, folks. Whew, and it went all over me. That's fine. Thank you for the like. Yay. Wow, I've been all over the place. So let's get going. What you are going to get to see demonstrated, I'm going to show you. I put a little bit of a teaser up for my patrons, but I've been busy. What have I been busy with? this. Wait a second. What monstrosity? This, and you'll have to let it continue. Is a boffer sigh. Now, why would I make a boffer sigh? Well, one, I have some semi-dubious closed cell foam that wasn't quite good enough for a couple of my projects. It's perfect for this. Secondly, it gave me an excuse to buy more duct tape because, that's nearly a religious experience for someone of my red-green possumology influence. This is a sigh. Now, we've been talking about sickles, and that was my sickle Xander was running with. Okay, cool. Trainers get used around here. I've talked about two-handed versions. People reference the sigh. Now, I have some problems with this tool, and I will be getting into this in some other videos. As an agricultural tool, a real agricultural sigh, let me just pop that out of my way, is a great thing. It's the blade, the handle is angled, the blade is heavy and fast, and it lets you reap, hence the Grim Reaper, through tall wheat and grass and straw. You have to remember, pre-industrialization, this is what lawnmowers look like, folks. That's why the other kind of lawnmowers were like sheep and goats and things that gave you food. I still think they may be better than our modern ones, although it is fun to ride in circles on a lawnmower at any given point. But let's talk combatively. Now, these do feature in several manuals, and there are very precise ways of using them. But they give a very bizarre and surprisingly limited band of attack. Now, the band of attack on any given weapon is how far out it reaches and how you can reach to make it go, and how, I am all tangled in my backdrop today, and how short and what you can do with it. This has a very narrow, because it does have a stabbing, point, slashing inner edge. You can do tremendous damage hooking and popping. Sorry, I had to move a chair for another project. And you can definitely sever and shear and do nasty, nasty things. Obviously, if you manage a downward strike, this is essentially, hexomatic. This is a piercing weapon with tremendous weight. It's still a mass weapon. Don't be fooled into thinking of this particular tool like a sword. It's not going to handle like one. It handles like a hammer or an axe. It's just the blade is facing inward. This long length is all for weight and surface area to shear lots of little things. But in combat, there are problems, especially line combat. Now, we have to go back once again to understanding weapons of war versus weapons of defense and weapons of war in period. Now, we are basically talking about the period where before the 1500s, it gets into the 1600s, but where firearms have transitioned, where line combat is still a thing in the shield walls. And what you have with this is a very limited and spinny tool. So if you have it with the angled traditional handle, it's a very horizontal. It is a sweeping application, which is great for one person taking out lots and lots of weeds and grass and small trees and what have you. It slices, dices, makes for a tried to the end. But that kind of broad horizontal movement does not work well in a line battlefield, and worse when you break into a scrum where you have a scrum. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this term. It's one of my favorites. The scrum is that knot of people and idiocy and psychoness that happens after line combat has unfailingly broken up, where everybody's just and the discipline has fallen away. Well, not invariably, but often. And you have people in and out. Ankle biter to disrupt lines. True, but very, very, very specific. And it doesn't work as good as what it became. So this is what people think of when I talk about a two-handed sickle. And it really isn't the tool. So I got to put this down for a second. No. Okay. And grab this. Now, this is on the same handle, okay? This literally is a sickle. When I say literally, this is a rough outline trace of my old sickle because I was looking up great sickles, and they're really neat because you take this and make it a little pointier, and this is what they look like in 1600 Germany. Now, you have this thrust point. Now, why is that important? Well, this is where it gets cool. You still can stab like a spear, and it usually has this slicing edge, but it can easily hook. And while it obviously as a spear is effective against regular, opponent to opponent, I poke you over there, usually over someone else holding a shield doing what they're doing. It's really good for just grabbing a hold and scooping a bunch of other spears or pikes offline. So what you can use a tool like this to reach out, hook. I have to arm somebody. What do I have to arm you with this week? I don't need something heavy. Okay, one sec. See if I can get this to work. We're tangled in some lights. Let's assume this is a spear. Okay. You're holding the spear, obviously, because you guys seem to really like this POV stuff. This hooks, catches, and knocks the spear away. Well, that doesn't do you, as the wielder of this little nasty hook of hate, very much good. But boy, howdy, does it open up for your buddy next door with the great sword or the Danish fighting axe or something that's a little more direct. You could even use this as a precursor for a cavalry charge if you're well trained, where a squad of these guys takes the line, opens up, knocks the pikes offline, and the cavalry charge, they either split to allow the cavalry charge to go right through, or they duck, basically, and a dressage-trained, massive war mount comes blasting through, opens up the line, and creates chaos. Who doesn't love some chaos? So they're going to look a lot. This will make more sense. Why? Guys, you got to get off the fantasy for a second. I love fantasy weapons. I love fantasy, D&D, RPGs, you name it. You guys know I love it. But when you are holding a weapon that is at a very long lever, that leverage weighs on you. So, looking at these two guys, remembering that they're being held aloft and moved around, which one do you think, as an implement, will be lighter on the wielder? Which one do you think will allow for more control of your opponents? This, obviously. Plus, if you could have 2 or 3 in the horizontal space of one of these operating. That's really cool. Now, like I hinted, and I'm going to do a video because sometimes people don't watch the live streams, more focused on all that. So you guys who come out and watch the live streams, you're getting a preview of some of the goodies that are coming. But, caffeine, blessed be it be. Okay, but what you're going to find, so you guys can get a live stream. I'll do another video. It's coming. I just have to balance the weather and weirdness out here. And boy, howdy, is there weirdness. So you have to think infantry hasn't changed that much. And this is really going to shock a lot of people. Whoa, wait a second. Infantry? Buddy, infantry is dynamic. Range has changed. The tools. The Gropo. Not even the Master at Arms. The cannon fodder and on up. The poor SOB who has to go somewhere and kill somebody he doesn't know, usually working for people he doesn't like because of duty or honor or necessity or a good paycheck, still has certain concerns. At the end of the day, they need their feet to be taken care of because they hurt. They want food. The logistics are there. And weight is the bane of the infantryman. throughout all of history, infantrymen have been looking for a lighter kit. And it's gotten harder as ammunition has changed, as weaponry and tools and technology has changed. The kit can get ungodly heavy. Now, in the Middle Ages, very often the soldiers were not as independently equipped as modern equivalents are, although there's a lot of crossing. It was more a camp comes, deploy from camp, do your stuff, usually during the daytime, come back at night, everybody rests, go back at it. Without electric light, things got hinky. Night combat being a very strange thing, especially in a historical battlefield. But oh wait, this is my trench hawk. This is something Cold Steel put out relative to a lot of tactical and trenching, not trenching, but combat tools. Short axes carried by special forces. Like SOG makes a beautiful one as tools for gaining entrance into cars or buildings or windows, and it's still a hand axe. I mean, 1,000 years ago, easy. Yeah, 1028 AD. Oh yeah, these guys were in play. Pretty much, you wind it back. As long as there's been combat, somebody's been using an axe. Huh. Maybe it hasn't changed as much for the guy on the ground. You know what? At some point in the future, somewhere, somehow, an automated drone will be taken out by one of these guys. I'll lay the money. Interesting. Interesting how simple and elegant this is as a tool. Totally undervalued. Because we have a perception, and this is going to go into my next portion. We have a perception, folks, of what is an axe wielder. Now, if I were to talk to John, and what's an axe wielder, he'd puff up, hit that Scottish accent. I can't this time of year. Hey, boy, an axe wielder. It's glorious power. Barbarians, yeah. The dwarves among us rejoice at the thought of one of these guys. Or, one of these guys. This is a solution looking for problems. This is a grand thing. But it tells you in story, because remember, we have a lot of writers too. An axe is the weapon of someone who's an outdoorsman. Well, I mean, okay. Reaching over here and pulling out 2 weapons. 2 houses alike in but okay, 2 weapons. I put these up. I bet I could say which one's a barbarian or a ranger and which one is a rogue. And instantly, anybody who's classically game trained is going to say rogue, swashbuckler, yeah, barbarian, ranger. Druids get funny about axes because they get a little too tree choppy. I want to chop your trees. No, you can't chop the trees. I want to chop the trees. No. So, you have that. This is a shortcut that authors, writers, filmmakers use. And they can do that. I'm going to talk to you guys a bit about that because it's a neat bit of theory. Laddie, 'tis a good way to split a skull like a melon. Exactly, John. It's cold, and I can't have a fire because it's been a drought and it would light up the world. We have like double red flag. Like there's a red flag warning, don't have a fire. There's a dude running around. No, really. No fire. But it's nearly Halloween. I want to have a bonfire. No fire. Axe. But like I said, this is a shortcut. Like, if you see somebody, and it's neat, you see somebody, and they're going into battle with something like this. Your first thought is, good God, the cook left his wagon, you know? This is the Hobbit, like, fine. You know, you got the front lines, the second line. You know, front line's the shieldman, and flanker's a great sword. You got the second line, it's the spearman. I'm talking to John, and the is just coming out. You got the third line, which is the archers. I'm gonna kill them from way back. You have like fourth line, fifth line, right here, right here. You know, having somebody carry a kitchen knife, right, makes you think civilian or untrained, or it's a weapon of improvisation. Another thing, if I hold a knife like this, right, just a dude holding a knife, watch this. Instantly, by everything we're taught, this guy, it's Psycho has trained us that this means the bad guy going for the stab. This is your special forces guy. You shouldn't get that much information from the simple grip of a knife, but it's there. How you hold it, the viewers, they have been trained to think things. These two knives are similar length, you know, different material, obviously. I still haven't put a handle on this. But this knife has a whole lot more meaning. If you see a knife shaped like this, you start to think, oh, that's a bad dude. Why is that? What would make this knife seem different? And on the hill behind the line, there are archers taking out the masses. I'm not going to get that song stuck in my head, John. It's trying. And I'm fighting the urge to talk about generals and black masses. Wow. Anyway, this instantly. Now, this is a very modern fighting knife design. It was an Ares something or other. I can't remember the details. Basically, Steve let me sketch it because he handed me the knife, and I'm like, ooh, very much a fighting knife. But in a fantasy setting, especially, this. If I asked you who made this, would you say humans made this? Maybe. Dwarves? Nah, doesn't scream dwarf. Elf. Ooh, this has elf. This is close. But especially because of the post Lord of the Rings movie, where elves are very, very elf. This screams drow. This is an underhanded throat slitter. And it's just it shouldn't give us that much information. But that's what this knife tells us because we've been taught a variety of tropes. Again, now we'll take it and combine it. Guy with the knife. Makes sense. Maybe a rogue because he's got a roguey knife. Get it go. Now definitely brigand because somehow the downward strike in theater, in film, is the action of an evil guy. I'm not sure why. I don't know the origin of that other than the movie Psycho in the modern mind. But understanding that that's just what a bad guy does, you know, and then I do this, and I just hear. I'll tell you what I hear when I do this right here, especially with this knife. One of the few knives I actually like reverse gripping. I'm not going to talk about how expensive the dang thing is, right? And I close up the middle line. You see reflexes. These two things are coming together, are tied. As soon as this comes up, my shoulders drop, and I want to get behind the knife. It's just because I played a bit. But this, to me, every time I see this, I start hearing Tommy Lee Jones talking about, no, man, no, it's a revolution. You know, they don't call it change, it's a revolution because it just keeps coming back at you. Yeah, I'm going full Under Siege on this one. But this is somebody going to F somebody up. The knife, just the design of the knife, combined with that, has become shortcut to a vaguely trained film audience that that's a bad dude. Combat vet grip. Yeah, it depends. Like, when you see this stuff, John knows what I'm talking about. It tells you. And I was talking to Cindy Cat, who may be the other watcher. I don't know. She usually gets on these, and if she's not, she'll catch in the review. One of my amazing patrons. But how people fight, what they fight with, is incredibly telling, and we have a whole system built up of rules and mores about who's wielding what, and being able to look at them and go, I know about that character. You know? And then when you find exceptions, it locks in. I have not seen any full episodes of Game of Thrones. This is because we have one TV that functions, and I sit with Xander. We're not going to watch Game of Thrones with Xander, and he doesn't sleep. You know, autism, yay. But I have seen some scenes. I've seen important scenes because people like Nick, you need to see this. The whole water dance bit. And what Arya does when she realizes she's much smaller than most of the people around her. So she needs to scale her weapon down and makes that needle of hers elegant, refined. Much, much later, when she's going to deal with the White Walkers, she's like, I need a weapon to fight them. And basically designs a sort of Mordu double daggered short step because she's going to be in a relatively enclosed environment. And she's had a lot of training on quarterstaff, and they have that dragon glass stuff that works on the Walker zombie dudes. She factored it in, designed it, and then it splits. Yay! But you know, it's designed to do with what she's trained to do. She made the weapon work for her. That's what you should be doing, and that's the mentality I think characters who are written need to be. Well, okay, John says rules are made by those who want to limit control and are made to be broken. I agree. But in this case, what I'm talking about isn't just fighters, because I get a lot of authors who are coming to me asking about writing the fights and, you know, expanding things. And yeah, I can do fight choreography. We can talk about that. Everybody talks about that in this field, you know. But what I'm talking about is what initially a weapon says about the wielder and how to use that articulately. And you're right, making those rules and breaking them. I like I said, as a sword master, as a trainer, and as somebody who's adaptive, I live for that mentality of adaptation, of how to take a style, make it work for you, and get tools that work for you. Because I don't know how many times I saw people hand weapons scaled to somebody built like you, John. You know, this is a sword, one-handed sword for a 6 foot tall, you know, hulking man. Hand it to a little girl, you know, watch him fall over and then laugh. Drives me bonkers. Or worse, you're short. Yeah, I'm short. You need a longer weapon to facilitate that. Yeah, so you give them an overlong rapier. Now, I have a little bit of beef with swords that are scaled, you know, only for duels, because training for duels does not prepare you for melee. Whereas training with a melee accent can get you, you know, make you function in a duel. Because the mentality is different. The more I think about it, the more a melee engagement is not, and has never been, a whole bunch of duels at once. It really isn't. That logic doesn't mess. But a duel is totally a one-on-one melee. Do you see the difference? The practical mentality of survival, of efficiency, plays over to both. But the duelist, I don't give my swords to littles, and I don't use much over daggers. Well, see, that's the thing, John. You're a good trainer. Sometimes we disagree on things because we're different people, but you're a good trainer, and that's something else I've seen. A good trainer does not look competent at certain points when they're working with somebody new. I've had people come up, watch me screw around, just screw around, and I'm working with somebody, or I am literally goofing around, and then they fight me later, and they're like, "You fight totally different." Yeah, when you're teaching somebody to fight, you should be teaching them to get hits. So you really want to work at that 4-to-1 line. You want to be getting about 4 hits for every one you give them. When you are bringing yourself to their level, because you should be opening. When I'm fighting somebody new, it's kind of funny because I'll be like, okay, and then we have to fight, and I leave openings and I move a little slower and I telegraph a bit and I do things so that they can see it, and then as they build up, I stop telegraphing. I tighten my range up. I tighten my motions up. Maybe I up my aggression a bit. Sometimes I pull my aggression down a bit to match roughly the level till you get to where they're just a colleague. And then it's like when John and I would play, or Trelena and I would play, we're going to go out and play. Wiggity, 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 And sometimes it was just like, what are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? Nothing. Bam. I'm sorry, we're having some real bad net issues due to the windstorm and weirdness that's blowing in overhead. But so if you keep dropping out, John, you may just have to check to get the pieces you miss in the replay. We're just having some issues. I want to talk to you guys about something else. I'm all set up. I'm gonna learn you some. And we're going to start real simple, like I said. In America, mind you, and in most of Western Europe, I'm going to draw 2 swords. Okay, and bear with me. I'm doing that right now as we speak, so it's not the most ornate. Okay, this one looks a little bit more gin than I would have liked, but that's okay. Oops. Oops. We got this big old handle. And I am being a bit excessive here for reasons, but it's mostly so that you can see. Okay, if I hold up these 2 swords, right? In America, who's the good guy? Right here. Who's the bad guy? Right? We're going to do this. Yay, good guy. Bad guy. Now, I picked this for a very deliberate purpose. I want to reference a character. And I want to reference a character that I am really annoyed with current redraws because people don't understand the importance of the discussion. Historically, throughout the trope, good guys wield straight swords. Bad guys used curved swords. Why is that? Well, you got a couple roots to that. First off, you have to understand that straight swords make more sense against armored opponents because curved swords work really nasty against unarmored opponents. So when you take something like, I don't know, the Crusades, you get a group of people that have been fighting unarmored opponents for a very long time. They're very good at it. They wield curved swords, easier to draw on horseback. The slicing motion I've discussed many times opens up a larger wound cavity, especially in passing. So whirling dervish as a term. But on the Crusades, largely, those were the bad guys. Meanwhile, the straight sword is perceived noble, upstanding. There's no deception in it. It is an honorable weapon. Now, why is that important? That is important because what if you want to break that? As John said, rules are made to be broken. Well, we have to talk about modern culture. Modern culture. Modern culture. We have a problem. And this lovely problem culturally has emerged from a book series written by R.A. Salvatore. And R.A. Salvatore wrote the Drizzt Do'Urden series. The Dark Elf trilogy is still my favorite in the arc. It started with, was it the Halfling's Gem? The Crystal Shard or the Halfling's Gem? I can't remember which one it was because I'm brain farting. But it brought a Dark Elf. Now, D&D terms, these are subterranean, evil, spider-worshipping nut jobs. I mean, these are like the kind of evil that is unabashedly evil. You pull it up and go, look, it's evil. It's like viscous. And you can tell they're evil because they use sneaky weapons and poison saps to knock people out. Because, yeah, I could kill you, but I could do worse things to you if you survive for a while. They're shady. Okay, I get what you're saying, son. So you have Drizzt, and Drizzt is born in this, but guess what? Shockingly, he's not evil. Twist! But his favorite weapons were two matched scimitars. Now, for us Western European-oriented, Americanized fantasy children of Gary Gygax, bad guy swords. And not just one bad guy sword, but two bad guy swords. Mind-blowing. To the point, he encountered a very, very powerful magic sword that the one thing it couldn't do is change the shape of its blade to bend, to be curved, so that he would wield it. It drove that sword nuts. Yeah, that's right. His skill was so much it drove the greedy, please wield me crazy sentient sword nuts. Now, why are you talking? Because the trope is so powerful, so ingrained in our psyche. If you look up, my man, Drizzt, this boy here, Drizzt, my man, Drizzt Do'Urden. You can buy replicas of his swords, but they look kind of like that. Okay. The modern version of his swords, as told, looks something like this. Now, to the point, I'm sorry, that's actually, my bad, that's actually too straight. It's more like that. To go from, this heavily curved depictions of these great swooping old school Knights of Arabian Nights looking scimitar to this slight. I mean, if it were any straighter, it'd be a patent saber. Why? Because he's a good guy. Because at some point, some focus group somewhere, and maybe not that, maybe it just affected Todd Lockwood, who was an artist who took over art for Third Ed and was responsible for much of the art of the third edition of D&D, one of the most influential ever. And his style took over, and it was very Lord of the Rings influenced. So you have these very the sweeping, and it's straighter because the very definition of how the trope works is if they're a good guy, the sword has to be straighter. That's bizarre. It's bizarre, but it's true. Okay? It's ingrained in the populace, and it's fascinating. I mean, if you're a pirate, you carry a cutlass because you're a pirate. R. You don't see paladins with cutlasses very often. That's where it gets interesting. Let's look at something like a concept. The concept of the paladin. Paladin. This is the good guy. The good guy carries a single two-handed sword. Here we go. We'll get out our whiteboard of knowledge here. Give me just a second. The paladin, who is honorable and noble and all that jazz, carries something between a long sword. This stuff didn't dry enough, so it's not coming off real well of my laminated stuff. But that's okay. Sorry. Now look. Show you something funny. My hand spasmed there. And I'm going to leave it instead of trying to fix it because I want to show you something. If I cover this part up and you look at that, just that profile, that straight sword, that is the sword of a paladin. It's straight, it's rigid, it's balanced, it's fair. As soon as I do that and you see this waviness, it feels uneasy. It feels off to the point where I was like, oh shoot, I didn't draw that right. Why? Well, because the sword isn't straight. There's something wrong, twisted, perverted. It's that easy, folks. So understand that. It's to the point where if you ask what is the best sword, you'll have two camps. This day and age, you'll have two very profound, major uber camps, especially gamer guys. Gamer influenced. You're going to have your dude, it's a katana. Deal with it. Why? Now, you'll get one of two style of answers. The katana is one of the most balanced, effective, efficient weapons ever developed. Okay. Then you look at the other guy. You can cut a tank in half with it. I saw it on the internet. Woo! Me, 2020. But or you get the long sword. Why? Because it's best. Okay. No, it's elegant, it's refined, it's fast. And then they're usually Meyer guys. It's funny that both are two-handed single blade swords. Both are ritualized as a weapon of honor, nobility, and masculine precision. We get really phallic here, folks, but it's fascinating. And we got 3 viewers, 1 like. Guys, hit the like, please. It's more scared of you than it. Or they run off. Glorious. Think about that. Now, something else interesting occurred, and I'm going to be talking about it in November. My post Halloween mental reset. I'm going to be diving into something, and this is very close to a patent saber or a patent sword, and it is a saber style with this very straight, weighted cutting blade. This is one of the most elegant weapons I own, and I own 2 of them. They were purchased for a reason, and that reason ended, so I keep them. Just interesting, it has a hollow ground distilled paper. The spine of it has hollow ground. That has nothing to do with our conversation, but I find it fascinating. But this is a very practical cavalry, combat sword, and one of the last designs developed. It's a very, very nice weapon. But it was actually Patton's design of the sword in, I want to say, it's either 1914 or 1911. I think. No, it was before. Oh. Sorry about that, guys. We got a bit of internet update. My point being, there we are. It wasn't a saber. It wasn't curved. It wasn't doing the same things that were expected in a military saber. The military had evolved to curved swords to the point where, until you hit that, the last military straight sword, with the exclusion of Spain, Spain being a very different little school of thought anyway, and somewhere near and dear to my heart, even if it has nothing to do with my genetics. It's just interesting. The combat curved saber was very, very popular. Look throughout the Napoleonic era, a lot of curved weapons. The style of saber was very easy, very simple to teach to lots of people, minimal cuts. It's something that was learned through single stick. It was trained. A lot of the lower class people, and in a time where the middle class was not as much a thing. It was the saber was prolific and effective and well loved. But what about the rich dudes? What about the commanders? What about a lot of people? Well, they weren't trained in saber dueling. They were trained in foil. So their weapon, pulling a tool off to the side here, looked more like this. A straight blade. Very fast, very light. This is what they knew how to make go. Saber is very contradictory to a foilist. The saberist is a different animal. They think differently. It's fascinating to see. I really wish Al was here. Rex Allen Hood. He's a guild member, incredible swordsman, incredible fencer, and a bit of authority on more modern fencing. But the lords, these people who purchased commissions, and oftentimes they had to purchase their own sword, were rather fond of something called a spadroon. A spadroon. And later a small sword. Now these are often, even now, if I say small sword, a light, basically think a full length something like this. So double length, you have something like a small sword. This is a bit wide. But then again, this is based on a Spanish broadsword which is actually much wider than this. This is a very interesting item. I'm still looking for both a trainer and a more practical live steel because this is a family heirloom and my all-time favorite to carry sword. So I need something more usable to kit out of that. But they do something like that. And as soon as I say small sword to people now, they instantly think something like the word fop. Oh, really? Oh, it's a little wire weenie. It's like everything the heavy fighters would say about a rapierist. A rapierist would say about a small swordist. Until they fight, because they're light, they're fast, and as long as you're avoiding properly, they're devastating weapons. It's a fascinating tool. It's a fascinating period. I personally love transition periods in history, in technological development, in fighting styles. And what I'm saying is by saying he had a small sword, that tells you a lot about the character. If I said he had a dagger, most people are going, okay, he's poor. He's just armed with a dagger. He's probably an assassin or a brigand, or he's poor. I say a stiletto. Whoa, dude. He's an assassin. Or I say stiletto, the thought actually goes, she's an assassin. The perceived weapons of women get real interesting, especially when you realize it's absolute Victorian balderdash. You look at the Vikings and they dig out these sites and all these Viking warriors, wait a second, half of them were female. But they don't want to talk about that because the Viking, think of the classic Viking era sword. It's basically a thick gladius. What I mean is you see a Roman gladius and it's got that very almost leaf shape. You straight running Viking sword. Give me an Uthbert, clunk with the wide rectangle. Very good for grip retention. They want to say, oh, that barbarians. No. Raiders? Yeah, well, technically, yes. Bearded people who effed up Rome. You're going to get that. Norsemen, dudes who came down from Finland, etc. They didn't have a lot where they lived. They couldn't farm where they lived, so they just go sailing and steal some stuff from other people who did. Fascinating. Now, because most of our element comes from a westernized culture, I want to show you something. This little dude is modeled on my wife's sword. This is a trainer I made for her. I have to retighten the grip, which is part of why it's here, and the other part that apparently it's a little too pretty to use, and that chafed her. So this is actually, by my best guess, a Southern style gin. This is a short, fat, aggressive style gin. Sorry, John, it's okay. I can keep prattling for a while. John's connection is dropping out. That happens. I will never fault someone for technical difficulties. But it's also, if you took this hilt and you blocked it, made it square, made this part square, functions very much like a Viking sword. So this one is a little short for what we think in terms of a Viking sword. But for my wife, because it's scaled nicely to her, it works very much. And you see the handling of it, lock it in that classic, it's the hammer grip. And you bam, 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 hit the wall. But, whoop, bam, bam, bam. Very much lock. Whoop, SCA fight style. This is SCA for days. Heavy fighter. Whoop, hits there. Whoop, hits there. This tells you this is a smaller person or it's an aggressive fighter weapon, and you get that. Why am I talking about this? Why am I going on and on? Because as authors, I want to fix something that is wrong. And I'll be talking about this again. I'll probably get to it real heavy at Clever Title Pending November 3rd on Brian K. Morris's channel, which I will be the guest star of for the people looking to get something other than the tears that are going to be election night. The weapons you choose as an author and as an artist are going to tell stories themselves about the wielder. So use that. Now, part of what I'm saying and part of what cheeses me is when you see a movie, okay, and you have two people, okay, and they're fighting, okay, and it's clearly the exact same style of combat on both sides. Now, sometimes that makes sense. You're watching a movie about kickboxers in a kickboxing tournament after they've rolled their rat knuckles in broken glass and Skittles and whatever. Fine. But it's two dudes in a street. They're going to fight differently. And a good choreographer as an author, because as an author, you're a lot of things. You're a cameraman, you're a director, you're a fight choreographer, you're all these different things. As these different things, you get to say, yes, this is that. No, this is that. But if you're going to have two forces fight, different weapons should fight differently. I don't want to ever see another thing where somebody takes a great hulking great sword and they block it one-handed with a small sword. Does not work well. Might not break the sword, probably would. But more importantly, it's against the style of the weapon. Okay? You're going to avoid, you're going to come at it from a different way. That greatsword guy isn't suddenly going to devolve into a club-wielding lunatic. No. It's versatile, it's fast, but it's also going to be very sweeping. It's going to take a lot of area up. Okay? The attacks, a lot of the cleaves are horizontal. You have that spin. Oh, I got a comment. Let me see who's. Whoops. Sorry. We got a comment on here. And, oh. Actually, it's from our old friend Swords Edge. What I am looking for is more uncommon Western sword retailers that would have English links. And Swords Age, somebody we know, is more into the Eastern. If you want to talk gin, that man will talk gin with you for eons. You'll just sit back and you will learn and discuss and fight. He's still my favorite guy to talk lightsaber fighting with. But if you haven't watched his channel, if by some chance you don't watch the Sword Sage YouTube channel, you really should hop and like and subscribe that after you're done here. Don't leave me, folks. I don't have many of you, and I need you desperately. But, sorry. Very dry at work today, and I'm still feeling it. When you're writing your fights, different people fight from different ways. if you're looking for shortcuts, an idea what I'm talking about, don't be afraid to hop on some of the fighting video games. A lot of them, especially the newer ones, show pretty, but like Soul Calibur. The Soul Calibur series shows some really dynamic. It's not perfect. It's certainly not historical. There are some more historical games coming out in the near future, and that's good. Like Bushido Blade, way back in the day, was a game changer because one or two hits took somebody out. The life bars weren't there. It was revolutionary. But look at some of these. Don't be afraid, if you have access to these, to sit down with somebody and be like, we're going to beat on each other for a while because I just want to get a feel of, at least their take on the motion of a great sword or of a jin or of a staff. And you look for similar weapons that move differently. Why? Because you need to see it. And you can read manuals, and you should look online, type up, great sword versus short staff. Go through mine. I mean, we have hundreds of videos of people sparring. And what's interesting is they're real people. Okay. Most of my students come from some level of disability or injury or untrained background. So what you get when you watch our bouts very often is a funny kind of realism. And I think for authors especially, it's important because you can look at the way the fight breaks down because they're not choreographed, but you can start to see how different styles with the same weapon can be fought differently. And different weapons with different styles, how they overlap and match. What works and what doesn't for some people is different. But as somebody who's creating, this is your opportunity to really just stop, rewind, look at why did they do that? And sometimes they'll do something wrong. Understanding why people make mistakes, how mistakes work, is going to make your fight infinitely more believable. Because I love the best of the best. Everybody loves that fight. And if we're going to talk best of the best, Wesley, a.k.a. Dread Pirate Roberts, versus my man Inigo Montoya. The best film sword fight in history ever. Drop the mic. While that's going on, whoops, excuse me. I do need to look at Cult of Athena. What's happening is right now, Sword Sage and I are in a slight timing discussion on alternate Western sword suppliers that I can look up for you guys because people ask about that. And he's talking with Skullgrim, so there we go. We're I tapped a little and went ripples down to some pretty big names. That's awesome! Name dropping! But I want to see that more in movies and things. I'm so tired of left, right, low, high, low. And you're like clapping the fight out. And it's two dudes with two different swords. I love fencing. I love fencing blades. I love fencing swords. And I do love the old Basil Rathbone, Errol Flynn movies. But once you know something and you understand it, you'll understand that there's a tragedy to those. And that is, at his time, Basil Rathbone, the bad guy, in most Errol Flynn movies, was one of the most devastating fencers on the planet. He was an amazing swordsman, hard stop. Errol Flynn, whom everybody loves. I mean, he pretty much defined movie swashbucklery. Was a movie swashbuckler. So Basil's job was not only to look pretty good, but make sure Errol Flynn looked better. That takes skill. It takes a level of mastery to make yourself look sliding scales of bad but believable. And you get that particular skill set by training people. Remember how I was talking way earlier in this little broadcast about when you're training people, you have to be able to elevate to different skill sets. Well, do you know what happens when you're training multiple people? Okay, you guys do that, you guys do this. I'm going to work with her today. I'm going to move up to them. I'm going to do this and do that. And then we'll have a melee, and I'll work with somebody else. Every single one of those bouts is a different relative skill level. The melee may be an all-out scenario, especially if it's one of those everybody versus me games that they love to play. And I would rotate, make everyone have to suffer. Why? Well, I could. I go, okay, big. And I start a little exploratory. Okay, yes. And you get rattled into I'm fighting at this level now. Pop, 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 pop. I'm okay, drill, pop, 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 pop. Open, get it, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. And you'll see that. Watch the video sometimes. You'll see a sliding scale. Now, some people actually took offense at that. And I'm like, I will match your level. I will fight you where you are. If you want me to fight you harder, get better. And that isn't a shot. That's how I train. I'm not going to push and say, you're a level 6 this, you're a level 7 that. Can I fight you? No, let's bring it up. And every individual person has a different set of goals and different things they need to work on. Oh, I just got some sword makers to look into. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Sword's Edge. Because I haven't really. I have been so far in the realm of trainers, I've gotten out of the live steel game. Because my tastes are so specific, I'm not lusting after everything that comes out. You go through that period. And then you end up with the whole, unless it does exactly what I want, I don't really want to worry about it. But I know people are interested, so I'm doing some research so that I can come back later and bring some more recommendations that I've gathered for you guys. Yeah. So we're past an hour. I'm going to take a break. I want to thank Cindy Kemp. I want to thank Steve Augusto. I want to tentatively thank Brian K. Morris, who said he's going to be one of my patrons, and I believe him. I want to thank Steve Clausen, who, even though he's not here, he has a wonderful habit of mailing me things to test and play with. And I can't not appreciate that. I want to thank John Miner, even though his connection is popping in and out, for always talking. We go way back. I owe a lot to John. I've tried to pay back in service and like. We have a long history. I want to thank my viewers. I want to thank, obviously, my Patreon members. If you want to be thanked prodigiously, join my Patreon. $1 a month. I know a lot of people are like, at this torrent level, I'm going to do this. So that I'm a lot more like PBS, guys. I can't do this without support. And almost everything I have is crammed into this channel. And then my students when they can come back. I am planning early release works for the for my patrons. I'm also going to be doing a set of videos for my patrons that may be released on Halloween for you guys if my patrons are cool with it. And that being on Supernatural Defense. That will be the How to Fight Vampires, How to Fight Werewolves. It was supposed to come through. I didn't like the way the video was coming out, and I needed to restructure it. And I'm not going to give you guys less than the best if I have time to edit. It's not like Livestream where I sit down, grab my caffeinated beverage, and go and shoot knowledge, ideas, thoughts, questions, commentary at you guys. It's a whole different spirit. What I do, and if you want to thank you can look at go on Amazon, buy the Big Stompy Robots books, buy The Simple Sword, read it, tell me what you think. I'm writing sequels. Tell me what you guys want me to create, what you can't find, so that I can do it at a low cost, so that you have access and the knowledge is either acquired or preserved or developed. Because that's what I'm about. I am a one-man wrecking crew trying to break down the gates of expensive education for sword stuff and gaming. Ooh. Ooh. John, if you're making swords, I'm going to tell you what I want you to make. Okay? I'm going to tell you. John Miner just said, need to make you a hobbit-sized kukri with a trench knife thing, but check the legality. It gets a little dicey. John, I love this. John Miner gave me the sword. It's got about a 20-inch blade. Let me double check. How are you going to double check, ruler? I'm an American. We don't use normal measuring things. This is a 17-inch blade. Okay, 17 and a half-inch blade. It is about 6 inches longer. So it's about 24. What I want is a brace of pretty much rigged like this, probably triangular, very piercing, or even wider blades like this, swords. I want that. You've seen me dual wield, but something in about the 24-inch range that I can have as my actual dual wielding kind of set. That is my dream set of weapons. I actually ordered size 0 fencing blades, and they didn't send them to me. They sent me size, size 6, the regular length fencing blades. So I am going to rig them because I have them, fencing foils, but they won't be that what I was looking for. And now that it's not really hot, I can get out in the garage and I can work on my tools. But you know what? I also wouldn't, that John wants to take a kukri and put a spiked knuckle guard on it. Apparently, he really wants to bring out my barbarian, I don't even know how much hate that weapon would elucidate, but boy, would it be elegant. So that is something else. I'm basically on a quest for a couple swords, and now I have to add this John's Hate-O-Matic, the Torvald Swackhammer Hate 2000. But I accept all donations. You know that, John. I just had to mention what I'm questing for because it's your fault. You have both blessed me and cursed me with this blade because I went all my years in the SCA since I had this wanting to fence with these to the point I got down to a 30-inch rapier and I got flack for it by so many people. But I loved that thing, and a brace of those would have been great because I'm a midget, at least compared to you tall, long, scrunchy folks. But, wow. We're also at a point, guys, where it's not a bad idea to have a live steel weapon or two you really like. Yes, sir. I will watch my mail. Okay, John, there's something you got to do. You got to have your website set up so I have somewhere to direct the people who want to purchase your stuff. And you got to let me plug you. Gus. Yes, sir. This is my lawn sword. Now I have a cold steel It's like camp and garden angled machete. But this was given to me by Jim years ago, and this is like what I lovingly think of as my great sword. This is my long sword. I can mire and do all that swirly stuff with this. And I tell you what, you know what? If I get 5 patrons, when I get 5 patrons, I will do a video doing like a cut test with this thing. I'll probably resharpen it because I've used it a lot. And if you examine the edge, let me see if I can get where the light hits it. There you go. It is beat all to heck because this is not a toy. This is not a wall hanger. This is something I use as a tool. And I would love to see Cold Steel do more swords like this. You know what I mean? And I would like to see more companies do essentially that machete. There's a Gladius machete out there that's gorgeous. And I'd like to see more things like that, where it's functional, dare I say, ugly tool steel versions of different swords. They have an actual katana that's like this that I'm eyeballing. We need that low style, high quality, budget cost gear to preserve our art. Because there are a lot of people who simply can't afford to throw 2, 3, 4. I mean, I've seen some Albion swords that cost more than my first car. And it's like, there's a company out of Texas, the Angel Sword. Steve Clausen turned me on to. They have a proprietary form of metallurgy. And I will be honest, a couple of the weapons I've handled were, to a guy who's handled steel, they felt like sorcery. Like, I can't describe. You can grab aluminum and you can grab steel and you can tell the difference. Like, you can feel one is ferrous and one isn't. There's a resonance there. But they make a steel that feels as light as aluminum. I still can't figure it out. I can't figure it out to describe it, and I've handled the stuff in a very small dagger form, and it still baffles me. But when he gets rolling, I have a couple people I want to recommend depending on where you are and what your price range is. I have to find out if Tyler Clausen is still getting into things. So, Steve, if you see this, message me if Tyler's gotten into that. John Miner, he has been if I were to go to a personal swordsmith, John has been it for, 20 years. And the man knows how to make swords. He knows how to make riggings. He makes beautiful, provided he finishes his welds. That's a long-standing joke. I'm not giving him poo. That's old history. But yeah, you do, John. You got to get back to the shop, please. I will drum up business. I know sword people who want to go out and they want to buy their sword. And it's like, and they're looking at Bud K. John, help me save people from Bud K. I was at a gun show. I was at a gun show in Lake County, Indiana. This guy stops me because I'm looking at the swords. John just said he has a 26 Schlager. I need a moment. John has a 26 Schlager. That hit me like a warhammer to the chest. Dear Lord. I don't know where all my blood and thought went for a second there. Boom. Dead space. I mean, what the heck, the knifey? Knifey's like, oh, we're experiencing technical difficulties. I really need to get some googly eyes for this thing because Knifey's becoming a mascot. But yes, John, a 26-inch slugger is something I can't know about. But wow, still having some. I put my hat on and I swear I hear Dropkick Murphy. Was it Cruising Down to Boston? Start up every time I put my hat on. This is the replacement of the hat, which is the hat. The original hat, which is the hat, is stored away because I actually dissolved the liner from wearing it for years and years and years. And normally I wouldn't wear a hat indoors, but that light is really wicked on my light sensitivity, and it's actually quite brisk in here right now. We're at that flux where you don't turn on the heater because it's getting too hot, so you just kind of cuddle up for a bit, you know. This is a more of a Northwest Indiana thing, and I'm not in Northwest Indiana, but still there. You guys know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, well, let me squeeze on by. Excuse me while I squeeze on by there and get some ranch for my authentic tacos. But that's mostly humor. Getting back, cycling. When you're looking in, so I want you guys to keep in mind the fighting style and the fighting tools of your characters when you're writing. I hope this is beneficial. I don't know if it is. Please comment. I live for the feedback, folks, because it's what lets me know that what I'm doing is actually having value. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you want something else, as long as you're civil, put it in the comments. Let me know. I want to work with you to make everybody better. But God, I swear, sitting in here is like party time for my ADOS to just run rampant. This is my wife's. For when you want to stop anyone but the door. But when you are working, try it out. Okay. Authors, again, this has been a very author night. I may totally be using this as a warm-up for some of the material I want to throw at Rising Tide Publishing's clever title pending the 3rd. But because I want to have it kind of played out in my mind and be able to talk about it and be mentally loose. So I want you guys to really tell me, again, things you like, things you want me to discuss, props you want me to make. Because like I said, I haven't been able to use these guys much because the danger virus, but I'm making things like this so that, one, when we meet up again in all the old familiar places. Man, now I want to watch Casablanca. Anyhow, when we meet up again, I'm going to be able to hand these and let people fight with them and see what it means and see. And they're not perfect. My gosh, this, okay, it would be about $9 for a cat pad equivalent to what I used. This is actually about a $2 2 something dollar chunk of PVC, 4 19-cent end caps, and a roll of duct tape. And I did not, I used a part of a roll because I didn't use a whole roll of duct tape on this. Good God. But I'm eventually going to run rope to fix the problem. Is it SCA? No, this is not SCA legal because this is PVC. Now, if I took this off and I put it on rattan, it would be very simple. I'm sorry. John wasn't commenting about this. He was talking about that 26-inch Schlager. Dear God, John. I'm incapable of like nothing must be enchanted or something because I can't think of anything but it conceptually as soon as you mention it. Just like my brain just melts out my ears for a second. We're talking uh Kat Dennings in a sundress, brain just stopped functioning. But I'm sure it's beautiful. You know, oh, that. I bet that thing just handles like a dream, too. Makes me want to re-rig my 30 to go alongside it. Because I am going to lose weight. When I lose weight over this winter, which sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of how I tend to work, I'm going to be getting new body armor for fencing. I haven't spoken to my wife / seamstress yet, but of course it's rigged with a swept tilt, John. I know you. You would never do something not a swept tilt. You make things pretty, pal. You always have. But I can't wait to see it, though. I mean, really, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I still need to get these guys set up. Of course, trigger post. John is speaking in vaguely illicit terms. John made okay. I've been stammering, so I'm gonna break it down. Basically, John has a 26-inch blade in Schlager. Schlager's type of fencing blade. It looks. I'd have to go off camera. I have an oval over there, but it's a little squat, narrower and thicker than a modern rapier fencing blade. But gorgeous, gorgeous, and speaks to my soul. With a swept tilt, so it's pretty. A trigger post, that means I get trigger grip. Now you have to understand, I have to be more delicate because these two fingers are not always reliable anymore. So I almost have to fight with something short, light, and with a trigger that I can lock down on as needed. Now you'll notice my fencing grip, and it gets commented on. So let me get when there's a trigger. Okay, my thumb is actually side. I have callousing from gripping with the side of my thumb. That way, my orientation is always right there. It's a very strange, very old habit of mine. So that sounds amazing, John. But he's basically talking about the sword that's in Pennsylvania, and it's basically pornographic. But let's talk about earlier. Let's talk. What does a short fencing sword say about me? Interesting. Considering, let me look at my loadout. My loadout usually is two shortish fencing blades. So they're light, they're short. A backup dagger, usually worn on the back of my belt, something akin to this. Or I have a nicer wide blade dagger. Boom. What does that loadout? Well, okay, the screams swashbuckler. The extra weapon implies rogue, but it almost guarantees that I would not be a full-size character in literature. Like if you saw that, it's instantly a halfling or a gnome or something. This is fascinating to look into. You have to examine yourself and your mind, and that's intriguing. I'm running low on caffeinated products. This is not good for anyone. But so yeah, that might be an interesting bit of homework for you guys. Go back through my videos. John knows how I fight. John knows a lot about me, so he'll be able to respond with what he thinks of my fighting style, what he thinks personally, not me, instructor Nick, although you can kick that in there. But what it says about me. Look at the people who regularly fight and appear. You're going to see people like Jim, that's James Robertson, Trelena, Joe Bachman. You'll see Amanda to an extent. Little bit of Al. There is a video tucked away of me and Sword Sage. There's another one of me and Sword Sage with him giving his version of commentary on his. Look up Sword Sage's My Mr. Fix-It. Go from way back. Yeah. The name of Our Lady of Darkness, Elvira. Oh, John. I swear there is a contest among certain people to see just how derailed they can get me at any given point. And even though John is currently uncontested this week, he's definitely succeeding. So, yeah, there is a lot of silliness, a lot of beauty. I'm going to be like the little kid peeking out, looking at my mail, like, is it coming? Is it coming? Is it coming? From whatever you said. But yes, I'm kind of heinously addicted to the weapon you are describing. Oh, my ears are ringing. Somebody's talking about me, and that is okay. But keep all this in mind. This is good, fun stuff. And artists, don't be afraid to study and use this knowledge too. Everything I do overlaps. You're like, well, what about fencing students? Well, this is a great opportunity. There comes a point where I call it the second stage in instruction. I teach everybody to start who hasn't handled a weapon with something very similar. It is very akin to something like this on me. This is a little short, but it could be about that much longer, but that's okay. We had that problem with the maker. Pop goes my shoulder. But it is roughly a weapon of your reach, and this actually goes, when you include the hilt, you get to, it's in the middle of the range that I consider effective. Grip, one-handed. I teach everybody from the basis, one-handed this. I then usually progress to something staff-like, and I teach knife, and I teach axe. So basically, it's almost like I teach this, and this as your offhand weapons. Before you add two swords. But then there comes a point where you have to pick what you want. And what you pick, what attracts you, will be influenced by your own mental tropes. And that's okay. For somebody like Scholagrim or somebody like Shad, the longsword is a symbolic weapon. And it's nobility and honor and being the hero. And maybe it is. Maybe that's part of what it means to wield that sort of weapon. John says, it says you're capable and you know what you're capable of. Thank you, John. That is very sweet. And I appreciate that. I was really expecting the usual Hobbit grade joke that comes my way, but that thank you. I know what I like in swords. I've spent a lot of time around them. I've worked, and that's exactly what John has gotten to. But what about you? Many of you are very tall. Maybe you're tall, you're lanky. Maybe you want that longer, elegant weapon. Maybe you want something tying to your heritage. Maybe a shamshir, or some of the really neat Russian swords. Look at it and find what resonates, because that's what you're going to want to trade with. That's what's going to focus. That's what's going to be important to you. It's just like finding a fighting style. If you're looking at modern unarmed combat, there are some guys who are, man, I've been going to the same gym that my dad went to, my granddad went to. We put on the gloves and we solved the problem. Right? Yeah. What would be thought of John fighting Double Dagger? Okay, big guy pulls those slender blades. That screams a certain level of piracy. Double Dagger always screams brigand, bandit, rogue, highwayman. Because it's not a sword. A sword is the weapon of the aristocracy. When you're engaging the aristocracy with two of these, you're probably a scoundrel. And I think that there's some truth to that, and I think there's some enjoyment in that. The other thing is it tends to make people, I don't want to say underestimate you, but they underestimate the level of education and development in your style. Because the two daggers, I don't have a second fencing dagger. And that's something else you have to. Actually, I do. Of course I do. Right here. Cross style, but fine. Two daggers. This just says some things. Aggression. Fast. This fight's going to come to you. It avoids foppishness. It avoids a sense of duel. This says this is going to be a dirty fight. In many ways, two daggers. It's funny because two daggers says it's very much that aggression. I'm going to go. One dagger screams desperation. This is all I have, and I have to make it work. It's a really interesting variant because they're two totally different characters and caricatures. You know, and see the problem is it's not just that you fight that. You open up with like the fencing dagger version of Open to the Wind. You're out of their reach. Your arms are low. The blades are nearly touching the ground, about 12 feet away from you. You know, I don't have room in here to do the stance. Let me see what I can do here. Man, I'm gonna have to get some cleaner for this. That's okay. John, when he fights, give me a second. This is speed art, guys, so you can't hold me accountable like professionally stuff. But it'll take me just a second. I go to pole armor glaive as the second weapon. Yeah, you do. But John almost always opens. Let me get rid of this. I gotta get the proportions right. Give me a second. With the blades down and almost back, it's very bird-like in like a predatory bird. With a very pronounced lead foot. So your stance usually looks something, and again, you open up very, very wide. It's like a version of the bird that puffs up. But when you puff up, it's literally this wall. And it's like, I don't want to fully menace you. The blades haven't come online yet. You have a chance to leave. Or you can be stupid and try to cut inside. And it serves as an intimidation and very much a feint. Because this reach is far farther. Because if John's over here, and I'm doing stuff right, and his arms are back, he's got that leg extended. And it's funny because it's like a next level come at me, bro. He can pull that sword online and skewer the side of your head before your blade gets in reach because of the length of his arms. The dagger is deceptive. His reach is deceptive, and by cocking it back as far as he does, so it's way back here because he has time to bring it online. He knows where he's going with it. It's the equivalent of, you want to fight, bro? Come on. Chin's right here. Because you want to know where that punch is coming. I'm not probably supposed to know that he's doing that. But it also, walk away. It's very, very assertive to the point of absolute aggression dominating. Which is funny because Victor Fault does the same thing. And you two will oppose each other, except his is lower and more forward. And I watch you two square off every time you do this little dance. And I've seen you do this to hey there, little man. And it's neat to see how your opponents react. Because I've seen 3 reactions. Basically, the subtle half a step back. He's not, which means you may not get them in that initial, but you've stepped into their head. You are now living rent free in their head. When you see that byline, you say, "Oh shoot, John's living rent free." There's the, you want some? You really want some? They jump in and die. The only third is somebody who's good at a proper, really good, of longer than normal, but not gargantuan, can pull the quick shot. I'm gonna stab you in the neck. Now, double dagger with 1 in reverse grip is you peace. I've never seen you start that without being mildly angry. That's a whole different spirit. Because then what's happening is they're looking at this. Your other short dagger is at back. It's actually couched. Like your hand is on your hip to draw a gun. The tip is low to cover the low line. But you want them to be worried about this so you can catch and gut. It's a very different kind of spirit. There is a variant I've seen where you have the low guard back, and you're just hiding it. John was talking about double dagger with 1 reverse grip. He has 2 stances with that again. Oh, and we'll pull this back. Actually, here. I want this because this is the defensive dagger. This is rigged to be defensive. This, and you go, a low cock. But what's scary is when he's got it defensive, he's got this one out, and the back one is up because his arm is so long it swallows almost the whole dagger, and it's back. Because he's going to do something normal and bring this up an elbow as a draw cut across. Let me line that up. Draw cut across the mask. You're done. That's when John wants to send a message to somebody. But like I said, I've only seen him fight a few times, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm innocent. And see, that's the great thing. I can watch how my friends fight and tell you what their mood is. And I can do that with most people. You see them hit the field, and their demeanor changes. I work with people with different backgrounds, and one of my favorite background fights I ever had, I think it's actually on the Guild. We were back at this house, so it was one of the few practices that were really rolling at this house in the backyard. We're having a melee with John Hudson. That's Steph Marie's husband to be. Really great guy, but a Marine. And the reason I say "but" is because the Marine personality is something that can take over. So we were sparring and we're doing something, and I swear I watched. And if you watch the video, and I think it's a public one, you can watch the musculature where he goes from John, like you can hear the transformer noise, Marine, and he's about to jump and mess somebody up. It's that you can see the bizarre patented mix of adrenaline and testosterone just flexing its way through Bane's style. I've seen that with a lot of vets. I've switched on mode. And a lot of times it's like, whoa, now we stop for a second, calm everybody down. Bob was good for that. Talented, really dug greatsword. Bob is sort of the reigning king of the Montante. Great big. His solution to every problem was, if I'm having a problem, the sword's not big enough. Good fighter. I miss him. He moved to Oregon, I think. But maybe someday we'll get him back and get John Miner and him to spar. And if it seems like I slot people who I want to see fight together, I do. I have people I would love to watch spar because it will tell me a lot more about them. It's not quite a lie detector test, but yeah, if I watch people fight, I know them better. There's a certain truth that comes out. And sometimes that truth is deception. If I watch somebody fight and they're very much a deceptive fighter, I know things about that. If they're faking not being as good, which is a different kind of deception, I can usually catch that. It's very rare for me to, and I'll be like, why didn't you get them? You had it. And maybe it's what they're deceiving, what they're fooling is they're fooling themselves. It's a confidence thing. Sometimes. Sometimes it's a, what do you mean? Oh, you're saving it for the tourney. No worries. I got you, bro. And there have been times you're not supposed to know that. Be like, watch somebody fight. It used to be I could be like, that's your tell. When I watch your foot, you're gonna tap and go. I can call what they're doing. Drove some dudes nuts back in the SCA. Why are you watching me? It's practice. I'm not fighting. Might as well watch the fight. Yeah, but you watch different. I pay attention. How did you learn that? I paid attention, my man Antonio. But I'm old and I'm fat and I'm gimpy now. I'm probably not much use to anybody, especially on the field. But I'm going to give it a shot when the world gets better and we can all breathe. What we need to see is how we're going to fight and how that's going to benefit us and what that means about us. Because at the end of the day, unless you are actively fighting in real world conflict, if you're really like, I'm defending myself, there's got to be reasons we're out here, and part of it's building confidence, getting healthy, but it's also should always be getting to know yourself and what that means about yourself, because there's a lot that can be learned mentally and emotionally from how you fight physically, what you're inclined to do. And that style will reflect across other things. Would it shock you that I'm a bit of a camper if given the choice in most first-person shooters? Not a full sniper. I don't want to sit back and just take. But I'm a bit of a camper. I don't want to run out and be like, squirrely. No, it wouldn't surprise you if you paid any attention to the way I fight. But every once in a while, I get bored and I go out and get squirrely. Yeah, again, have you watched me fight? You're going to see that. And what I do, I'm a very weird person in that I don't have one lane. I'm a gamer. I'm a swordsman. I'm a sword master. I'm an author. I'm an artist. I'm all these things. But I'm doing so. All of this is progressing with the same set of intentions. I want to break through certain barriers. I want to make sure certain barriers are broken for other people, externally and internally. I want them to see what I can see. I have been given a gift in that I can get to know somebody and I can see their potential. I can see flashes of what they could be. A lot of times they can't see that. So I do a lot of work to try to help people see who they can be so that they can build up, so they can do stuff. And that's where all the goofiness starts to line up, And once you realize that, it all starts to make a lot of sense. So we're getting into the last 10 minutes of the show. I'm going to see, it's been a small turnout, but I appreciate you guys. I'm assuming people will be catching this on the rerun because there's a lot going on this week. So if you like what I'm doing, comment, please. If you don't, comment. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, what you'd like to see fixed. As long as you're civil about it, I'm all about learning. If you want to support what I do, really please consider becoming a patron, because that's the money that I use to buy cutting boards so I can make trainers, and trainers so I can train people. And I have no gear that I use to protect myself, solely to protect myself, but gear to protect myself. I mean, come spring, I'm going to need pretty much new armor, in part because I gained weight, and in part because it's just that time, folks. And I can't afford to do that. I don't charge my students. I could. I mean, I've charged for special, like, come to my house classes, but I just felt bad about that. I only did it once, for one student, and it felt wrong, so I stopped doing it. I'd rather, here's what I'm giving. If it gives you value, give me what you feel the value of it is. And is it selling myself short? Absolutely. Is it bad business? Yup. Is it how I roll? Yeah. Because I remember, like all things, I remember being the guy who was too poor to do it. And to an extent, I still am. I'm just shady and sneaky and merciless at myself for coming up with ways to do what I need to do. But I remember, like, sitting, watching the SCA and seeing guys fight in gear that's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Beautiful. With weapons that are insane, And I don't ever, I want people to be able to get out of that feeling as much as possible. John said, when I go to Katana, people, even you take steps back. John, when you go to Katana, I am not taking a step back out of personal intimidation. I'm taking a step back because I understand that your fighting style is going to be longer. A rapier should have a longer range of attack, but because it's a katana, you tend to be more aggressive, and you tend to do, oddly, more of a running lunge motion that combined with a flurry that is going to cover more ground than your standard fencing stuff, because it's the body language of making a katana go versus a fencing sword go. And remember, I am the guy who you drew, cut, and launched about 15 feet through the air. I didn't stick the landing, and it didn't look bad. But yeah, I kind of miss katana. I don't say that often because people get, Nick, but you said a katana isn't like a magic uber sword. Like, it's not, but it's a decent style. Different sword for a different purpose. And there are things that I work with that I don't necessarily train regularly. It's different mentalities, and I shouldn't have to put everything I do always out all the time. It's not about being better. It's not about being holding something back. It's about, there are styles I practice that I practice as a meditative tool. And most of my background, a lot of which overlaps, and comes from John. Not all of it, but a lot. It ties into some of the Tai Chi elements. It ties into almost the spiritual side of things, the mental, the finding balance, and the kind of things. Yeah, John says who they can be is the sword instructor's job. Exactly, and I try to help people find that, but they have to figure it out for themselves. I can only leave a trail. I'm a guy. I tell people on a lot of things, I'm a guy standing in a dim lit woods holding a lantern. I know where there's a. You don't have to take the trail. I know roughly where it goes, and I know it usually it's better than where you are. Now you could choose to go elsewhere, but I'm that guy, like, here. Or you can, you work with me, and I will, get on my hands and knees to elevate you guys up. or you can step on my face trying to get elevated and fall off. I wrote a story called Shield and Shadow, and it was really called Shield. It's also called Magpie's Tale. It's a good story. I may publish it when I can get it in the right format, but it involves that mentality, and it's it's one of the hardest things I learned in the STA. I'll always do this. You want up? I'll do this and I'll lift with everything I got. I'll put your foot in, I'll boost you. And you know what I found? There are a lot of people who will just step on your face. They don't want the help. They want to step over you. Or they want to kick you and knock you over when you build them up just so they can walk by. I don't know. It's vicious, it's unnecessary. But then I get up and I do this. And that's a big part of why I left and why I was why I'm not involved is there are people who don't want others to help. Because in that group and in a lot of groups, they treat knowledge as a commodity for prestige. And that's not what I'm about. Is prestige nice? Yes. Is money nice? Yes. But the premise should always be, at the end of the day, I know something, I have a knowledge, I have a skill set, I have some tools. I can help you get better. And if I can help you get better, if I can help somebody get up that next step, then I've done good in this world. Now, does that mean if I do my job, I'm obsolete? Absolutely. My first goal as a sword master, and I tell people this time and time back when I was in the society, I still tell them now, is to get you good enough that you can beat me and that you don't need me. But we're having a little minor technical difficulty. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, it's not related to this, best I can tell. So I will check that later. Oh, okay, cool. It involves orcs, and I like orcs. Some of my favorite people could qualify as orcs. But that's what we need to do. As students, we need to realize the good teachers aren't about them. If somebody's like, I am glory, and I can help you you simply need to obey me. And that sounds so farcical, and I've encountered it. I'll never forget. Join me, and I can help you get all the awards. All you have to do is ditch that supersized fighter chick you're dating. And it was delivered like that, folks. God. Yes, John, I miss push hands. I haven't had somebody to push hands with in so long. I'm rusty. I'm just so rusty. And that's one thing. I miss people. I miss what we do. And that's why I've done this. I mean, 31 weeks, 2 hours, roughly 2 hours a week. I'm sitting here chatting with anybody who wants to chat, putting out as much information, if only because it's a chance for the guildies like you, like Steph, like everybody else to pop on, say hi, ask questions, keep at least mentally sharp on these concepts while I try to figure out new trainers and ideas for the day when everybody gets back together and we can rebuild a new kind of normal. And that's what I want. I want to rebuild. I want people, but I'm all about building up. And it means I get left behind sometimes. And ego comes into it a little bit. Sometimes it hurts. But I would rather be left, have somebody ascend past where they can talk to me as a colleague, but they're training in their own style. They're teaching people. They're doing something else. And I can go, wow, you've gone so far. That there's good in it. That I would have somebody not or push hands with like in the edge on, especially this year. But it can't. There are so many people who they want it to be all about them. about making them look good through you, or making, I've had students, and I still have people I work with in different organizations, and I tell them, no, 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 no. You want to go, you want to play that club, go. Just don't mention me. Well, I'll teach you. I'm not ashamed of it, but I don't want my reputation, the negativity, the radioactivity that's been put on me in certain circles to come down on you. It's like, but they should know you're helping people. No, no, because I don't matter that way. I mean, yeah, it'd be cool if I did, but I don't, and that's okay. Because the job is more, there are times where the work is more important than the worker. And that has been abused in certain capitalist mindsets, but there's an aspect of the work that I'm trying to do that is far more important than anything I'll be, anything I am. I want people to grow and to they can. I got asked if I'm not still in the society, why do I still help people occasionally who are involved in the society? I said, just because I was forced to wake up doesn't mean I should steal anyone else's dream. And I think I've done more good internationally and, even in the society for a while there from outside it than I was doing inside it. And yeah, again, if I let ego in, it would hurt. The sense of loss or a sense of injustice. There's always going to be a sense of injustice. But it's not about that. You let that rise up, you look at it and go, dude, this isn't your show, and you just let it go. That's kind of the mindfulness, the balance. That's more, but that's part of my journey. That's part of my growth. It's not just about rolling with the punches, it's realizing the punch is irrelevant. The job is important. And believing in you guys. And putting what I can out there. That's important. And all these people, I want awards, I want notoriety, I want fame and power and glory. It would be neat not to be forgotten at the end when everything is all tallied up. But that's not just statistically like a certainty. It's it's a reality, and it's one there's a certain comfort in. I tell people, when we get religious discussions, there's a saying, I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. Good for you. I would rather clean St. Michael's toilet than go to heck. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to say I know my place, because it's a very un-American concept, Most Americans see themselves as the millionaires that haven't hit it yet. And that's not who I am. My place is helping people. Yeah. But instead of skewering the boy that blocks my way, John said, who is this boy who blocks my way? Which is a reference to those few people here who don't know. Wow, our numbers are up. I guess I'll stick on late tonight. It's a reference to a song by Moonwolf, The Swordsman's Dance of Death. It's one of my favorites. Look it up sometime. But it shouldn't be, I have experience and age, and I'm going to defeat you. Killing somebody, like at the end of the song, spoilers, whatever, is not the purpose of old age. It's almost counter, I think. What you should be able to do is, from your position of experience, and from my position of experience, be able to diffuse that situation, and then no, dude, your parry's wrong. I would counter that song with there's a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was a cartoon that Nickelodeon put out, and there's a part where the character Uncle Iroh is wandering Ba Sing's Bossing. My speech impediment won't let me say the name of the city, but there's a whole episode where it's kind of about him and he's wandering around, and this mugger comes out and the character can literally generate fire. He can be like Hadouken and incinerate the dude, but he doesn't. He goes, "Your stance is all wrong. You're holding the knife wrong. Your feet are wrong. You're gonna fall over before you skewer anybody. What are you doing? Let's have some tea." And this is paraphrasing in full Nickdom, but he helps the guy figure out some things. He talks it through and gets his life sorted out, but also corrects his form because that should always be done. That is something I think needs to be pursued. There is a feeling, and I think it's a pervasive thing, that if I have age or experience or wealth or power, it is my obligation to maintain that and keep that a secret clutch. And I really think the old martial arts thing about a closed hand can only punch. That's all it can do. An open hand can do a lot more. You open it, you go, dude, here, let me show you a little bit. Let me help. You spread that around. And then hopefully the next guy's got that and some other stuff, and he spreads it around. It's like one of the great things about this is really off topic, but it's going to make sense for everything. The great things about the internet and information being out there is the spread of recipes. I can go and I can get the authentic ingredients relatively cheaply or something close and look up, a Chinese dish that's a traditional Chinese dish, make it and enjoy it in Indiana. And the next day I can have an authentic Mexican dish or relatively close because I looked up the recipe, did what they did. Somewhere in Mexico, somebody could be like, and I don't know if it happens with them, be like, I want, they could have sausage and sauerkraut from a German dish. We share these delicious ideas. And then you get this, everybody gets more stuff, more options, more ideas. And they can say, I don't like this, but I've tried it. I like this. It is far better as a human, in my opinion, to try things and build an experience and go, I don't like this. I do like this. And I'm not talking moral, things. I'm not talking like, villainy and such. I'm talking, I want a sword fight. Okay, I'm going to try. What's this style? Oh, okay. It's Gigante's approach. Cool. Oh, we're going to look at Fiore. Doody 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 doo. You try it and see what you can. That's what knowledge, what experience is supposed to bring to people. That's what I, in my humble way, I use I use the term sword master in part because I come from organizations that have very precise terminology. I am this, it means this, it means that. I have mastered the use of a sword to a certain degree. I can teach you what I know, and I will teach you pretty much everything I know. And then you can do that, and you can go out and teach people. I am at a level where I can instruct, and I'm comfortable instructing the basics to probably moderate. There are advanced things that I don't do, and I don't claim to. I can't say, you will be a master at my hands, because it's not about me, it's about you. What I can say is, I will give you the tools to build a basis. And from that basis, from like that foundation, you can look up and decide what the structure of your fighting style is going to be. What weapons it's going to be built around, what tactics, what techniques. And you can take from other people and pull in. Going back to me talking about the internet recipes, I'm teaching people how to do a recipe, some simple recipes, how to turn the stove on, these sorts of things. They're going, hey, if I use a wok, I can make this. Cool. That's the mentality we should seek. And that's what the guild is about. Because the best guild nights, the best sessions or workshops back when we were in South Africa are the ones where you've got somebody who's, an amp guardian fencing, or, they're sparring with a guy who's a classic fencer. You've got a Gian fighter going against a very interesting version of Gigante and using a tortoiseshell style buckler that's like a Polynesian kind of thing you don't usually see. And and it's all this intermixing. I'm a fat guy. I use a lot of food metaphors. It keeps it PG-13. You know what I mean? But it gets that. What you end up with is a buffet. And it's just like going to the Chinese buffet. And you can reach out and pick, I like this from this. I like this from that. And sometimes there's consequences. Like if you like Spanish blade work and Italian footwork, it's good, but you got to be careful because that's going to affect your calibration. Things like that are going to happen. But you also choose to be like, ooh, and you look at hand to hand, Russian Sambo and, Krav Maga, and they've kind of spliced it together. John here, who could list off his stuff, has like Hapkido, Tai Chi, some power arts, a few other things, plus all this fencing, plus all the sword work, and it all makes this gobbledygook that is his personal style. Now, something else happens, and this is when we start talking about experience, and we start talking, there is a responsibility that creeps in there, because there's a power when you've taken all the pieces and you've squished them together with experience and tests and you've pressured them, and this gem comes out. And that gem is your personal style. This is my approach to fighting. There comes with it you could almost say it becomes a cursed gem, in that there's an obligation there for it to reach its true potential. And that's for you to write up and disseminate, publish, get it out there, your take. Now, I know some people are like, it's written up and it will be disseminated after I'm dead. Okay, you still fulfilled it. There's some people like me who's like, here's the basis. What else do you want to know? Let me help. I have this and I have access to this and I have access to this. Let's pull these threads together, tie them in a bow and make your world better. That's what we're supposed to be about, folks. And that's what I'm trying to be about. I'm not getting a lot of feedback. I'm not getting a lot of commentary, and I'm almost done with the video. So I'm about 15 minutes after. So I want to thank John Miner for a lovely conversation, as always. Thank my patrons. Steve Agosto, he's been with me literally since day one. He was my first patron. I've had a couple come and go during some of the lean hard times, which I don't blame anybody. 2020 has ransacked everyone. I want to thank him for being there. I want to thank Cindy Kep. She is like one of the most amazing cheerleaders, and she's just out there putting out good as much as she can with her own creations. Go to CKEP, CKOEPP.com. That's her page. She's an author, talented woman. And patron, so I'm thankful. Thanks to Steve Clausen, who's obviously supporting the channel with support and business opportunities and other things. I really and just somebody I respect. And again, John Miner. Huge thanks always to my wife, because I couldn't do this without her. Obviously, I couldn't do anything without my wife. I've been married for going on 18 years in a few weeks. I can give exact dates, but a few weeks. I can't do it without these people. And I want to thank the folks who go out to Nicholas Tucker on Amazon. So Amazon.com/author/Nicholas Tucker. Buy things like my Big Stompy Robots core book and the Simple Sword, the basis of the system that I talk about every week here, and I've trained a couple hundred people with. It only took me 15 years to write that book, so hurry up, folks. No, that's how I keep the lights on metaphorically and physically, how I can afford to buy the gear and how I can afford to keep things going just a little longer and keep, because I don't want to charge people. I want people to be able to get the knowledge without having to suffer for it financially, because I've been the guy too poor. I never want to look at somebody, I want to learn to sword fight. Oh, well, dude, you can't afford me. Never. I never want to be that guy. And that means I might take a financial hit. Guess what? I'm okay with that, because I think it's more important to do the right thing. If more people just tried to do the right thing, we'd be in better shape. So, a reminder for late viewers, I will be on Brian K. Morris's Rising Tide Publishing's clever title pending Tuesday, November 3rd, as well as my usual weekly shows here. I have a Patreon, obviously, please join. I'm going to be shooting videos this weekend, hopefully, knock on plastic, to get the supernatural defense stuff there. I got thrown off by a death in my circle and some other issues that really don't apply here, but stress is stress. Till we meet again, guys, keep your guard up, keep your head on a swivel, be kind to each other and to yourselves, and as always, support your local swordmaster.